Hey everyone, this is George. So the new issue of Alien just dropped, so let's talk issue 3 of Marvel's Alien series. Before we start, be warned there are spoilers for this issue as well as the previous issues, and if you're still here, well, here's a brief overview of the story so far. Issue 3 picks up immediately following the events of issue 2, where we saw a single xenomorph confront Cruz, his 2 accompanying men, and the individual they found in the second issue. The Xeno had eviscerated one of his men, who's now literally bleeding out on the floor with a massive hole in his chest. And this issue picks up with Cruz and his men trying to fend off this xenomorph. They're actually able to hit it a lot, but they can't seem to put it down, and it runs off literally carrying the injured man with it. And the surviving team member, he's pleading with Cruz that they should go after the guy the Xeno took and try to save the injured man, but Cruz informs him that it just won't matter. And then the woman they rescued repeatedly asks for a weapon, but Cruz refuses to give her one. We then get a quick flashback to Cruz's past, with him and his team are on the same fateful mission that we've been flashing back to in the previous issues, where they first encountered the xenomorphs. Their unit has boarded this distressed vessel, and they identify some animals that are still alive, but all have these strange scarrings on their faces that appear to have been from the facehugger implantation. This is foreshadowing the events of the next pages, where Cruz encounters one of his friends from when he was working on Epsilon Station as a chief security officer, and the man is just clearly distraught, and he's worried about his family who is also on the station. And there's kind of an interesting interaction where his friend says that she's looking for him, and in the following panel we see the image of the hybrid Xeno woman from the first issue, and Cruz's friend actually calls her the one in the dark. So Cruz's friend also has the same face markings as we saw in the flashback on those animals, which indicates he's been implanted by a facehugger also. And then Cruz proceeds to distract the guy, and then he mercy kills him when his back is turned to Cruz. And so the same woman who's been acting kind of odd and keeps asking for a weapon, it's revealed that she's been posing as the doctor that they rescued, because Cruz actually knew the person. So Cruz knew from the get-go that she wasn't the doctor she was saying she was. Her name is Iris, and she's actually the girlfriend of Cruz's son, and the same woman who killed the Weyland-Yutani personnel when they first boarded the vessel. So Cruz confronts her with this information and tells her he knew who she was all along, but he just wanted to see if she'd lead him to his son. And they argue, and she says she can take him to his son, but he'll have to abandon the chestburster specimen that's trying to escape the dead man's chest that Cruz just killed. There's a brief skirmish and she escapes, and then Cruz attempts to capture the chestburster with some sort of stasis field looking container. So we see Cruz trying to capture this chestburster as it escapes from the man's corpse, but it actually manages to escape from him, and then it actually attacks Cruz's surviving teammate and ends up actually biting off his finger. And while this is happening, another xenomorph attacks them, but it's forced to flee by someone wielding a flamethrower. And issue 3 ends with a big reveal, as we see the one wielding the flamethrower is none other than the Bishop model android, who is Cruz's counselor aboard Epsilon Station. So I really thought this was another solid issue, and I think what I really like about this story is the mystery that they're building surrounding Cruz's past with the xenomorphs. He seems to know a lot more than he's sharing, and there seems to be something unique about him. But why would the xenomorph entity, specifically the Xeno hybrid queen that we've only seen a glimpse of, have so much interest in Cruz? That I'm very interested to see. Assuming that the hybrid Xeno Queen may be some sort of ancient being, it makes it even more mysterious as to why she has so much interest in Cruz. I also like how we see more of Cruz's duplicitous nature. In one moment, he's seemingly caring and willing to help, and in the next moment he's carrying out what I assume was a mercy killing, but at the same time he seemed to be very concerned with capturing the chestburster, so much so that he actually may have passed up an opportunity to save his son by not cooperating with Iris. We also see that Cruz was willing to leave a man behind. I mean, sure, the guy is as good as dead, but he didn't even seem to give a second thought about trying to rescue the critically injured man, and resigned him to a fate which some might say is actually worse than death. I think this is what I'm enjoying so much about this story, is how complex Cruz is. He's not a good man. He's a motivated and driven man, and he seems to understand right and wrong and even wants to make an effort to mend wounds he created with his family. But at the same time, I feel he'd just as easily put a bullet in someone as he would offer them a helping hand if it meant the difference between accomplishing a mission or not. I also really enjoyed how they showed how deadly a single chestburster can be in its own right. I mean, outside of the video games and that scene from Aliens Resurrection where the chestburster is used for +2 damage kill, I don't recall really seeing the chestbursters being portrayed as much of a threat, and I've always thought of that form as their most vulnerable in the alien life cycle. But here we actually see the chestburster attack a full-grown armed man who's combat trained, and it actually severely injured the man. And I imagine if Cruz was not there to help, there's probably a 50-50 chance that chestburster might have killed the guy. And then another thing that I really loved about this issue is the final page appearance by the Bishop model android. I just wanted to cheer. I know he's not our Bishop, but just seeing the Lance Hendrickson Bishop model here brought back a lot of emotions because I love the character so much in the Aliens film and even in Alien 3. So this was a real highlight for me, and I think for me at least, it had the intended reaction I think they were going for by showcasing the Bishop model android in the comic trailer that Marvel released way before the series started. This was big for me, but it also raises a lot of questions. I mean, the base has been overrun by the Xenos, and yet there's an android still walking around the station. My experience from reading past comics like Alien Stronghold or Aliens Colonial Marines is that androids or synthetics were kind of viciously dispatched by the xenomorphs, and I always felt that they had some sort of hatred of androids. So I feel like a Bishop android would be a major target for any xenomorph because they pose such a considerable threat to them, at least more than an average human. So it'll be interesting to see if they give us an actual explanation in issue 4 as to how this Bishop model androids managed to avoid the xenomorphs so far. And while I'm still enjoying the artwork for the most part, mostly featuring like people and locations, I did feel like the xenomorphs actually had kind of a strange, stiff appearance to them. And while that isn't too bad, there was one panel in particular that I thought the xenomorphs were really poorly illustrated. On page 11, panel 3, the xenomorph anatomy looks very wrong to me. The tail seems to be abnormally enlarged, and the bodies appear to be incredibly frail. And normally to me this isn't a very big problem when there's an illustration from a perspective that's far away. You know, it kind of gives like a distorted look. But in this particular panel, the xenomorphs really aren't too far away to where it would be understandable for their bodies to be kind of distorted from being at a distance. And it just looks really off to me. I'm not a particularly good illustrator myself, so I could be wrong on that. But that's the impression I got when I saw the panel, and when I looked over it a few times, it just gave me that off feeling. It just really looked wrong to me. So that was a pretty big problem I had in this issue. One of the other things that seemed kind of odd was how the severely injured security member was even still alive. I mean, in one panel, you see the guy's chest ripped open, steam coming out of it, and you see his exposed insides. This isn't just like a small bullet wound. It looks like the guy took a full blast from a Predator plasma caster at point blank range. That's how bad this injury is. And not only is the guy not dead, but he actually manages to fire his pulse rifle with one arm and then be carried away by the xenomorph while he's still alive, and you know, his insides don't come out. And when I saw this, I just kept thinking, how is this guy not dead? And this actually leads to another thing that was kind of, I guess, bothering me, is how weak the weapons are that they're using. I mean, think about it. Cruz has faced off with the aliens before, and he's been in charge of a research station seemingly experimenting on the xenomorphs. So you would think they would also be developing anti-xenomorph weaponry too. But they're still using what looks to be the same weapons that they had used 20 years ago in Aliens. And I'm hoping we see Cruz discover an experimental weapon that would logically make it easier to kill xenomorphs in the remaining issues. But seeing as how Bishop is still wielding a flamethrower and would have most likely had access to any and all available weapons whenever they went on to high alert, but he's still using a flamethrower, kind of makes me doubt that there's any modern weaponry that's specifically meant to neutralize xenomorphs. And it seems like a huge problem to me that they haven't developed any new weapon or anti-xenomorph weaponry. I mean, it's plus 20 years later. And if there are any weapons experts out there, does this seem odd to you? But I'd love to know what you all think. And overall, I am still really enjoying this story a lot, and I'm definitely looking forward to the next issue. And I'd love to know what you all think. Am I being too harsh on the lack of new tech or the illustrations of the Xenos in some panels? And was seeing Bishop on the last page as incredible a moment for you as it was for me? Let me know what you think in the comments section. And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.